Fourth commandment right here is an inextricable, undeniable part of end-time Bible prophecy. Here, in the first angel's message of Revelation 14, verses 6 and 7, the Bible quotes directly from the fourth commandment. Incidentally, it also calls it part of the everlasting gospel. So anyone even not preaching the Sabbath is not preaching the gospel. Now here at the end of Revelation 4, we see it alluded to, you have created all things for your pleasure, they are and were created. Now historically, when we read Revelation 4, we don't see Jesus' physical presence back in heaven yet. This was before he ascended back. Now Revelation 5 is also where the book of the seven seals is introduced, and John wept much, verse 4, because he saw that no one was in heaven worthy to open the book. Who was worthy to open the book? Well, it explains it in the very next verse. The angel says, "Weep not, because the Lion of the tribe of Judah," who is that? Jesus, of course. He has prevailed to open the book and loose the seven seals. And John turned around and looked, and he says, in the midst of the throne, and of the four beasts, and in the midst of the elders, there stood a lamb as it had been slain, having 7 horns, 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent forth into all the earth. Now 7 in the Bible is a symbol of completion and perfection. Jesus, the perfect lamb, had been sacrificed and had prevailed and overcome to be able to have the right to open the 7 seals. Now, in this book by a pastor friend of mine, his name is Ernesto Illingworth, he points out a very, very interesting fact. By the way, you can find it on Amazon, physical copy or Kindle. Well, this is on page 74 of his book. Revelation 5:13, a few verses after what we just looked at, quotes directly from Exodus 20, verse 11, the fourth commandment. Now, Revelation 5:13 comes immediately after or at the end of a praise song that heaven was singing about Jesus because he died for humanity and he was back in heaven. And again, this is directly and inextricably and undeniably connected to the 7 seals. Now, one thing that it is important to notice about the Sabbath is that it's not just about creation, but redemption. You see, we cease to do our works on the Sabbath because we recognize that we cannot add anything to our salvation. And we really see this element of the Sabbath and redemption brought out in the Deuteronomy 5 version of the 10 Commandments. It says, "Keep the Sabbath day holy to sanctify it." Why? Because according to Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 12, the Sabbath is a sign that God sanctifies us. And God says, "Remember that you were a slave in Egypt, and I brought you out. Therefore, keep the Sabbath day holy, because you are grateful for having been brought out of Egypt." And for us, God is saying, keep the Sabbath day holy, because you are grateful that he has brought you out of sin. So those who claim they are living righteousness by faith but deny the Sabbath are actually doing the exact opposite. You cannot live righteousness by faith if you are not keeping the Sabbath. You see, claiming freedom from the 10 Commandments makes you a slave of sin. Which do you want?